Welcome back to another episode of This Week in Saw, the podcast where we dive into the world of software engineering over a slice of pizza. I'm Kodad, here on the other side of my co-host Chad, and every week we sit down with a guest from the industry to talk culture, projects, and everything in between while eating some great food. Today's guest is Zach Lannon, and we're eating some sort of pepperoni, bacon, something or other from Casey's. Continuing the theme of season, whichever one we're on now, and eating all the Casey's pies. So stick around, hear some great insights, share a laugh or two, and maybe get a little bit hungry. Let's dig in.
We always like to start with effectively the same kind of question or kind of, other than coming on this podcast.
Which you would know if you watched any episodes.
Yeah, he didn't even know he was supposed to sit in the middle, which I felt like insulting. You don't even see the screen, like even a screenshot, you would have known that. Not even watching an episode. But other than coming on this podcast, what's your biggest mistake? And hopefully it's funny. We're going to be a little more antagonistic because of the lack of watching with this one.
Biggest mistake?
Yeah.
As in, is this work-related?
Probably
or
work-related,
just
yeah.
The funny ones are work-related.
My first year in the business, I had to resend some emails. And so it had the list of emails I needed to send to. I forgot to clear my list when I sent an email. And there was about 1,000 people. So I sent out the first email, great. Second email went out. Oh, that person was attached with that. It's over to 1,000 emails. Yeah, it ran so quick. By the time you realized it, all the emails were sent. And it was definitely a learning experience. This was also pretty much before tests were written, kind of that industry. So
did you send them in a way that the first person got 1,000 emails?
yes. I never cleared the list each time I looped, so
Okay.
I just kept appending to the list of
I get what you're
two.
saying. And that went out and actually...
It was a generic email though, so that part was good. But yeah.
Doug? You went and sent me 10,000 emails in a second. Kind of took down our mail server.
Yeah, I imagine that'd be a little harsh. It could have been worse.
Yeah. I've had a couple bites of this pizza. It's pretty good.
I have opinions.
I'm enjoying it.
All right, so next thing I do is rate the pie. We rate on a scale of 0 to 10, or 0 to 100 if you want to do decimals. The cool people do decimals. Usually a score, if it's 0 to 2, it's usually so bad you don't really want to eat it all. You get that 3, 4, 5, that's standard good pizza. 6, 7, 8, like pizza you'd recommend to other people. And 9 and 10, that's the kind of area where you're going to eat the entire box, regardless of how it's going to feel the next day or what's going to come out of you. And you got to rate it first.
We'll do a 7.5. I like there's a slight heat on the back end of it. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, I agree. I didn't expect that, but I like it.
Yeah, I think there's some pepper flakes or something hiding in there.
Mm-hmm.
It would be better with hot honey, like some real heat up front.
Oh yeah, if you had hot honey to this and cream cheese to this, this is an 8 or a 9 for me easily.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go a 7.
Straight 7?
Yep. I feel it's really good. We've had better. But it's, to be honest, someone threw this out there, I would eat quite a bit of it.
Yeah. I think I'd go a 7.2. It's definitely very good, but I'm not the biggest fan of bacon. So bacon on here isn't really doing too much for me, but I think if you added hot honey or cream cheese, like you said, cream cheese just be over an 8 pretty easily. But they did there's some kind of Parmesan thing on here that's different from normal. So I think they did some sort of Parmesan seasoning stuff on here that's really helping. I'm trying to figure out, is it just the pepperonis that are spicy? I don't know that we've ever just had straight pepperoni pizza from Casey's.
Their straight pepperoni's not spicy. I've had that.
Okay.
There's something else.
There's something else in there, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm enjoying it quite a bit though.
Yeah. Taking the first question?
Sure. Now, you've been in this industry a long time. Kind of what was your it's been your journey through software development? Can you kind of walk us through, how did you end up on this podcast today?
Started many years ago. I actually went to SCC, so I just got an associate in computer programming with the direction really of COBOL mainframing. That
You know COBOL?
I know
I
that's
didn't
how
know
it
that.
started.
RPG.
You know that?
Yeah, and
Does
We're gonna
anybody
use
else
that.
around here know that?
No, it would be Zach.
anyone that would have went through SCC, because
But does anyone else here know that you know COBOL?
Me.
probably not.
So everyone's gonna know within like an hour.
Yeah. Wow.
It's been 15 years, but
This is new knowledge to me.
Mm-hmm.
green screen programming and all that. Yeah. So they teach you that as kind of they're going to be phasing out. They need developers. Then
Which is true.
Mhm. Yep. Then they teach you kind of like Java and classic ASP back in the day. Which then I would have taken a job actually doing the classic ASP side for roughly 7 years, in which then
So you're doing like, this is a little bit of context for the audience. I think a lot of people, when you say classic ASP, they actually think you mean ASP.NET. You do not.
No, before that.
You're doing VBA in the browser, or in the HTML pages, I shouldn't say in the browser, in the HTML pages, more akin to PH. It's closer to like what people did in the early days of PHP.
Yep, with thousands of line files on pages. Yep, you'd be like, oh, yeah, you need to go line about 4,000. That's where the if statement is that you're looking for. Yep. But that was kind of phasing out, and .NET, ASP.NET, and those were kind of phasing in, and at the time of the company, we were migrating to those and rebuilding the products. From there, kind of went to another company around kind of document storage management, so think loosely Dropboxy style things. And then ended up staying there for a short amount of time before getting a job here at No Panic Labs, working on a plethora of projects.
One, I didn't know the COBOL thing.
No.
We were going to most certainly hold that against him at some point.
Absolutely.
That is really good to know. One thing that's always interesting, maybe you never experienced this, you go from like an ASP or a PHP to a .NET world, there's always that moment you realize you have to compile every time you run. Did you find that particularly annoying at some point, or you never really noticed that?
I think I forgot about all those memories.
All those memories are gone? Okay. Because you go from one of those and you come back to a world, because we did a little bit of PHP a few years back, and we're 10 years ago probably at this point, and like, every time you came back to .NET, you're like, I have to wait for this thing to run? Or PHP, you just changed it, saved, and hit it again. So,
Refresh you.
yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, it was towards the end, so I feel like we only about a year that we had to write it before we switched. But I think there was still some old stuff that was legacy around.
What's your standout? You don't have to describe the project exactly, but what's your standout project that you had the most fun with at DPL?
We didn't do the hardware, but it was an IoT around cows and tracking basically the breeding processes. That was fun, just logistically, because it goes even down to like design decisions. What color the screen background should be was because the producers would be out, in the field and the sun glaring certain, a white screen or a black screen just was actually harder to see, that we kind of had different colors than you would normally think about. So things like that,
We just had that conversation in a meeting. Somebody was talking about a mobile app, and they said, this mobile app's ugly. There's too many big buttons. And I'm like, everyone using this is wearing gloves. And he goes, oh, you're totally right. Like, sometimes they just don't think about stuff like that, and it's ag-related too. So, like, they're going to be wearing gloves in the field when they want to use this thing. You can't make little design stuff in there.
What colors did you go with then?
It was like a dark red, and just red in general, which
Well.
seems very interesting because red, is very much a warning, air type state. So it was tough to actually like represent errors in the app because you couldn't.
It's all errors?
It was the red background, yeah. So you had to be very specific on the colors of widgets.
So it was like a red background with like white buttons, or what color buttons? Was it red and green? Was it a Christmas tree app?
Trying to remember, it's been a few years, but I think they were white.
There's a lot of red and white,
Yeah.
if I remember it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But
I remember the logo. That was red and white.
yes, everyone remembers the logo for that product because you got that approved.
Yes.
That logo. Anybody that's gone through App Store approvals knows that they lock down or they complain about all sorts of things. Like one time when on one of ours we mentioned Google App Store in our iOS Play Store description, and it had already been there for a long time. Just doing an upgrade, they stopped us because of that. But yet this logo, which I'm not going to describe or talk about, I would have like said they're going to block that for sure. You got in, so who knows?
Yes.
The most risque logo I've ever seen.
Yes, actually, 100%.
App Store.
And the thing that would always block me would be the descriptions of the app updates. I would write bug fixes, which was every top 100 app would say
Yeah.
that in their updates.
And they would
mine
block
would get blocked. They're like, are you kidding me?
And if you're curious, if you want to mentally like imagine what this logo would be, it's for cows mating. And I'm just going to leave it at that. Let your imagination go wild.
One cow.
Yeah.
One bull.
Yeah. Yes.
Nice. Well, I was told the purpose of this podcast was going to be to talk about AWS Bedrock. Was that not
yeah.
the...
No,
That's
yeah,
still-
it is. He's
still-
got some good insights for us.
Yeah, so I'm curious. I'm sure you've worked with other things that were not Bedrock. After having worked with Bedrock and not Bedrock, what would you say is the biggest pro of going Bedrock?
Well, just having everything all in one spot, you know, a lot of times tools are scattered across services, you know, and like when you have a product that's in AWS, it's nice to just have your resources in AWS. Yeah, there's probably a higher cost to it, but not having to have a dozen different accounts across services and trying to chain things together, just kind of all in one holistic Bedrock really is nice.
So you're saying versus like going out to a Google Gemini or going over to Claude or something like that.
I mean, yeah, we could obviously have done direct, but just choosing Bedrock, and you know, you're not bounded to now one, say, model. You know, we can swap models out because of their API. You know, it's structured to kind of unifying that.
So I'm in Azure land mostly, and we have our bicep files in the deployment process, and we can do that. Is there something similar with AWS and Bedrock specifically, where you can set up your deployments and configurations in pipelines to kind of streamline that, or is there still a lot of button clicking around?
You could. Our product used Terraform.
Terraform, okay.
But we did not add Terraform to it, mainly because I'm not extremely familiar with Terraform.
Sure.
So spinning it up was a very quick, low-cost solution. But we did. They have Bedrock has a thing called action groups, which are really just kind of backed by lambdas that let you talk to any external service, whether that's like an API or your own database. But we did Terraform all of those, but we just manually kind of associated them to Bedrock.
Sure.
It's not saying you couldn't. But the nice thing about kind of having it, just setting it up though in the browser is like, in the console, is that we could kind of iterate without checking in constantly. You know, there's a little bit more iterative process we can have.
You can fully experiment and play within there, which is kind of nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what did your local development, what that look like then, with using Bedrock?
We had a shared development, so everything was out to AWS in a dev environment, so we all kind of shared the same information.
Cool. Have you used local stack with anything?
Yes,
Can you do Bedrock and local stack?
did not look into that.
Yeah. I haven't looked too closely at some of these big.
I would bet
things.
against being able to use local stack with that at this point.
That's what I was curious about.
Yeah, I could be wrong. Maybe it'll come, but
Yeah.
I think it's changing so fast that you would be way more cost trying to keep local stack. Local stack's really good when it's working,
yeah.
and when it doesn't work, you can spend a whole day figuring out what changed.
Yeah, back to fighting cloud configurations and stuff.
Yep.
The good old days.
Yeah, like this is an example of it being so new, is that you were trying to get the knowledge base, I think what they call it, to use an S3 to do some vectorization of stuff, and there was no auto policy name for it. You somehow found that to inject that.
Yeah, their console for some reason didn't even have the S3 vector as an IAM policy.
Without that, you couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of a crazy, you know, again, maybe a little early. The technology is ahead of or it's ahead of stable maybe, or ahead of like well documented.
I just had to do some database backup-y things in AWS. And then it backed up in a format that you could query against that snapshot.
Oh,
And I forget the name of all that stuff.
really?
But
For the database?
yeah, it was like a backpack that you could directly query through the AWS CLI.
Oh, like SQL query.
Yes. Which was wild, but I struggled with roles and permission stuff in there too. And I ended up having to like define a custom role with a bunch of stuff in it.
Yeah.
Which Claude helped me do, thankfully. Otherwise I never would have gotten that far. But is AWS just less friendly with
Permissions?
like, roles and permissions?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a complete, I could say that completely confidently, but my experience has always been kind of like, you're guessing until you get it
Sure.
kind of right.
Okay.
Yeah, you can say, hey, I want to give permission, then this one almost has to be like, yes, I approve this, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Now this one was also weird. Like you couldn't use a root IAM user
yes.
with this service.
Yeah, you couldn't spin up knowledge bases, I think it might have
Yes,
been.
that's what it was. You could use the Bedrock. You just couldn't use knowledge base. Yeah, that's what I couldn't remember the exact. There were some weird dependencies where I was like using 2 users and trying to play with some stuff.
Yeah, it's weird as a root user to spin up your own user that has an own
Yes.
username and password to log into to actually create a knowledge base when you're like, I'm the root admin, I own the account.
Yeah, but you could not do it.
Yes.
Probably just so you could hand those credentials off to something else, right? And not just use your account every time.
I don't know. I think it's maybe they're slowly trying to pass in a little more of getting away from root accounts. Just probably from a security perspective, I bet a lot of people have been burned in AWS because of it's hard not to use a root account.
Yeah.
So they're just like, we're going to start forcing people to. That's my gut. But
No, I believe it.
how'd it work out for you? Kind of using this, and did it all work fairly well, or?
Yeah, so the idea was that basically we had 3 questions we wanted to ask the model, and each varied quite a bit, that we wanted a structured output that then we could react on that. We started at the prompt and we added the 2 JSON structures and said, hey, please, pretty please, return this. All was well, things were good. You get your typical, it would start with text before the JSON. It would do it in XML style rather than just JSON, even though you would tell it.
Use JSON.
Yep. It always wanted to fluff it. So then you would write, a service that would kind of be able to regex it and strip it out. It was doable. Then when we added the 3rd question, I think we hit the breaking point of the agent and it just refused to listen. And I don't know if it's because we had 3 different structures, and even then we would tell it, hey, follow this, like pass the type in, this is the type that you need to use, and just wildly inconsistent. Their documentation, we followed all their kind of guidance of how to, say please, to the point where Bedrock has a thing called action groups again, and those are lambdas, and they can they talk. You give them parameters, so we were able to define like an open API spec. Think of like an API endpoint, and just say, these are what we want in. And from there, then, we could write our Lambda to read those parameters out and actually be able to structure the data in our Lambda. And then,
That's the data coming out of Bedrock
so Bedrock would go,
over to Lambda and then back to you.
so you create an action group like get weather. And whenever you prompted something that it determined, I need to get the weather, and say your spec had latitude and longitude, it would say, okay, past that, it needs latitude and longitude in. Then at least when you're reading your parameters, you go, okay, I got latitude and longitude, I can structure JSON, and what we did was just dump it in the database.
Sure.
Because you pass sessions around. So we were able to control the session going in, dump it in the database, and then we don't fully care about the output, we just say, hey, did you work? Did you do what you're supposed to do? But if you didn't, we don't fully care because we have the database. Then I can just query the database, does the mapping, I have everything in a structure I can actually work with.
Right.
Overall, that worked quite successful for us. There were some little gotchas. Naming your parameters.
These are the parameters that ultimately go into the Lambda.
Like if you had something kind of like a camel case type longer name, let's just say it failed at trying to figure that out, even though the spec said it, it would just like trim off and only give part of it. So it wasn't always respecting the parameters.
Oh, so if you had one,
like jump height
and it would just be call it jump.
or height, yeah, it would be one or the other.
Or height.
Yeah.
Does it even do the consistently?
Yeah. So
Okay,
that was a gotcha. So you just kind of kept things kind of very short and simple, which is fine. There wasn't really a reason why we had to do the camel casing parameters. And then what else was there? That's slipping my mind now, the last part.
Do you think those issues you're seeing were something with Bedrock, or do you think that was something with the models you were choosing in Bedrock?
I'm guessing it's something to do still with the models and things, I'm sure.
What
Bedrock,
model were you using?
this was Claude Haiku.
Claude.
For cheapness, we were using some Amazon, their models, like Nova.
Yeah.
It was really good at orchestration, but it wasn't good at like gathering other data.
Sure.
I'm sure those models are a little bit constructed for cheapness and easy, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm assuming Bedrock gives you an easy way to shift those around and experiment with different models.
Yeah, you can just swap really easy. They've got things like optimized models that you would probably focus on. That's more around the orchestration. Yeah. And I think my understanding was that those are better at talking with action groups, where you could fall back to a non-optimized one, but you might be doing a little more configuration in the prompting.
Sure.
Where they've ironed out what the prompts are underneath that all to talk to those action groups. But we still had to include in our prompt, when this comes in asking this, call this action group.
Right.
Yeah.
Call that action group.
And you had to tell it when to call the action. Okay.
And it could chain, action groups
Yeah.
if you wanted that too. We would just create rules that say don't. Because there were some that were probably similar, but they actually had very different outputs.
That's cool.
Yeah. Can you change your model on the fly? Like if you had users inside of a product and your tier of usership would dictate like a higher model or something like that?
Oh, like by user changing it.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's like I could pay the premium to get a better result inside the app.
No, I don't think so.
You'd almost have to create two agents.
Yeah,
Right.
Pick
Manage
which one
with-
to shoot to based on
right.
You could do action groups. At that point, you would fall to an action group, a Lambda, and you would obviously orchestrate it to there, and then you could, within your Lambda, have your rules,
and
say,
framework
oh,
that
I'm
says
Claude.
if they're going to do this way.
And you would essentially be then kind of using the Bedrock runtime
Yeah.
to call those.
Right. Makes sense. I think like your free tier user is going to use the cheapest one you got in there just so you don't rack up a big bill with a bunch of free accounts. And then your freemium people will pay more to get better results.
It's starting to become more and more everywhere, right?
Yeah.
There's like the cheap model everybody has access to, and then the good one that actually works.
Yeah.
That's part of
Very
all
expensive.
the demos.
Yeah.
It only costs $12,000 per request.
Right.
Any more questions?
I don't think so.
I have a really good outro question.
Well, if we're going to get to the outro, we better get going. Sounds that good. All right, thanks for tuning in this week to another episode. Thank you, Zach, for coming on and
thank you.
shooting the poop around us. Huge thanks to Russ again for making us look good and sound good, at least the best of our ability.
Yeah, I don't want to. Let's not give Russ that goal.
If you like the episode, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell if you want notifications when we publish the next episode. If you have opinions on Azure Bedrock, go ahead and leave it down in the comments below. Tune in next week where I don't know, there might only be a couple more Casey's Pizza to eat.
We're doing this one you talked about with the hot honey.
Yeah, but I'm getting the itch to start a new season with a new pizza set.
We need to build the app so we can finish the last 3 episodes out.
Oh yeah, we still gotta do that.
Yeah, that's a brilliant end to this season.
Yeah. Also stay tuned for our AI episodes where the guest will be an AI agent.
Yes.
We're still working on the details of that. So stick around, stay tuned if you want to see more of that. Otherwise, see you next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks.
Right.
You have to stay there.
You stay.
But you can grab more pizza if you want.
You can grab more pizza. All right, the outro question.
Hold on a second, let me get out of the way.
And this wasn't my question coming into this, but based off kind of this, who in our office has the best jump height?
What?
Jump height?
Yeah.
Steve Dosky.
Oh.
He's probably pretty good.
Yeah, he would be the. Other than Steve Dosky, who has the best jump height? He would be the best. I would.
Pretty good one.
Yeah, that's a good.
Probably Wes.
You think Wes? Really?
Who do you think?
I haven't really spent a lot of time thinking about this. That's why, like, when you said jump height, I was like, oh, my brain naturally goes to Chris. But, you know, he's had so many knee problems and other things. I think that's, to be honest, asking him to jump would be a mistake.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would be him.
Like a Jack. He was a huge athlete too.
Jack. I'm going
He's also
Jack.
having issues, so I don't know.
Nope, I think he can do it even with the, Jack's
Why don't
mine.
you get one of those things that you slap the
Yeah.
guy
Yeah.
and actually have everybody come jump?
No, that's a guaranteed injury. I'm not being part of that. Someone gets hurt.
I have a better outro question for you.
Okay.
As a recent convert into idle incremental games,
Oh.
what's your 60-second pitch to convince somebody to try playing them?
To play idle or like incremental
To
games?
play idle incremental games.
Well, now that I have a 4-month-old, I don't always get to play games all the time now over in the evenings. So having kind of this idle incremental game, I log on for a small amount of times and play. And when my daughter was born, these types of games require you to kind of log in every so often frequency. That due to her sleep schedule,
It's perfect.
I was every 2 hours I was logging into getting, and so it was kind of fun and something to do at 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 5
Which
o'clock.
one are you playing?
Idle Obelisk Miner is the current one.
That's a good one.
Okay.
It's
There's a
a
bunch of us playing it back there.
2025 finalist.
My son just took off on. He's back into Melvor Idol.
Mm-hmm.
Him and his cousins are all playing Melvor again.
Have you tried Melbourne?
Yeah, I played it.
You
I
got
was.
him to play
Yeah.
Melbourne? Okay.
I played a ton of Melvor with you,
Okay.
or at least at the same time. We weren't playing together.
That was years ago. All right.
Yeah.
Favorite idol that you've ever played then? Last
Yeah.
question.
So far, that's the Idle Obelisk Miner, I think.
It's a good one. We'll ask you again in a year when you're at the end game.
Unnamed Space Idols is probably a second.
That was a really good one too.
Which one?
Unnamed Space Idol.
Okay.
You didn't even make it all the way to the end.
Mm-mm. Nope,
You never got to like the Armadas and stuff like that.
nope. I got time gated, and so I.
Time gated?
Yeah, pretty much. You just let time. Like at some point, I think I was playing so much that I was progressing too fast. That I needed just to wait like a week to
That's
catch
kind
up.
of annoying.
Well, yeah. Most of them was like, you'll get to a point where if you're checking every 5 minutes, you're not making much progress anymore.
Yeah.
Checking once a day or twice a day is a lot better.
Better.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, Melbourne does the same thing.
Yeah, but I was kind of a once a day kind of person, so it was perfect.
Yeah.
So I never noticed.